Hey, what's up guys? Tremsz here, really excited about this video. Going to do something a little bit different. We're going to talk about game development and creating games, but we're going all the way back to the beginning on the idea. How do I come up with game ideas? We've had a lot of success in the App Store, over 60 million downloads, a lot of hit games, and a lot of those I created and came up with the ideas like Phases, The Lion's Den, The Pit, and more. So in this video, I'm going to show you the 10 ways I come up with game ideas. I'm going to show you specifically where I go, how I use this information, how I turn it into a game idea. Now, before we get started, how are you going to use these sources? I can show you where I go for inspiration, what I do, but how are you going to actually use these games? Because you can't just rip them off. If I show you a game that's really successful, I can show you Super Mario Brothers. If you go rip it off, you're going to end up in a lawsuit just like Atari did with Pong. They ripped off a game created by Magnavox that looked identical to Pong. So instead, we use a system in our company called Model and Improve. And it's really simple. You get inspired by a game and you think of how you can improve it. You don't rip it off, you don't copy it, you model and improve it. We've seen this successful throughout the history of creating games. Okay, Angry Birds was heavily modeled and improved off of Crush the Castle. Doodle Jump from Poppy Jump, Clash of Clans from Galaxy Life, Minecraft from Infiniminer. The list goes on and on. Crossy Roads from Frogger, Super Mario Brothers from Pitfall. Pretty much any game that you've ever played before has been heavily inspired and influenced by a previous success. And this is how trends are created. This is how games end up kind of following this trend over time, right? Because people want to create games, successful developers want to create games that they know are going to be popular. And the best way to know if your game's going to be popular is if it's somewhat based, if it's loosely based on something that we know works. We know platformers work. And before Nintendo made Super Mario Brothers, they knew platformers worked with games like Pitfall. And I'm sure Pitfall was heavily modeled and improved off of something before that. So I'm going to show you where I find these sources, all right? Where I find games to get inspired from, to get ideas from. But then what you want to do is think of how can you turn that idea, this game you found, into something unique? How can you model and improve it, not just copy it? All right, so let's start with number 10 on the list of the 10 ways I come up with game ideas. And this one is game news sites. Now, game news sites is not my number one, it's my number 10, all right? We're gonna start at the bottom and move our way up to the most important, the one that I do more than anything else. But game news sites is still really interesting because it's showing you upcoming games. You can get a little bit of the pulse of the future of what's coming out. And I'm gonna show you some of the sites I use right now. All right, so first off, if you need inspiration, you can always just go into Google and type in game news sites. And you'll find a lot of different examples of game news sites here. One of the most popular ones is Polygon. All right, also Destructoid is a big one, N4G, but there's something interesting here. You really want to identify what types of games you are creating. Because if you're making mobile games, which a lot of the indie games right now are on mobile devices, then you're going to want to look in news sites specifically for either game development or for mobile games. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and change this search, and I'm going to do mobile game news sites. All right, now we have a different list. Of course, we have a Reddit post. Love looking at Reddit posts because they curate the content for you. A lot of times you have guys on Reddit arguing about stuff. That's awesome because then you get to find out the real, true, best one, whoever wins the argument. So I definitely like looking at Reddit posts. And also, this is a real big one right here, which is Touch Arcade, and then another one, PocketGamer.biz. So I'm gonna go ahead and open up both of these. These are two that I definitely frequent. And then the other couple that I like, I don't see these listed on the front page, is SlideToPlay.com and AppAdvice.com. AppAdvice doesn't just have games, but they're a pretty big app review site. They talk about some upcoming games as well. All right, so let's go ahead and check out Touch Arcade for now. And we're going to focus mainly on this one. It's one of the most popular ones. And it's a really good site. They have a lot of things that are coming out you can get ideas and inspiration from. All right, so we can see here they're talking about a new iPhone game coming out from the forums. Now, we're going to talk about forums later on, but Touch Arcade has a very active forum, and I think that's a great place also to get inspired, and we'll talk about that later on. That's actually ranks higher on my list. Now, when you're looking at games to get inspired from, to model, to get ideas from, you want to look at comparable games that you can create. In other words, we're not going to look at Final Fantasy unless you have a huge development team, a really big brand, and you think you can push out a game like that, which I do not, right? When we make games, they're pretty simple because we only have, 3-4 people in our gaming company. Cat Quest, this would be one I would want to check out for sure if I had an artist that was on hand, and we do have a great artist on hand. But if you didn't, then you wouldn't want to spend time researching something you could not create. So as you can see, we have a lot of different games here. I'm not going to go through all of them because we have 9 more sources that we want to go through, but this has definitely been a place where we find the types of games that we like to create, which are mainly the minimal type games that are a lot easier to do from an artistic perspective. Even our games like The Pit, which are more intensive with the graphics, still are fairly minimal. Now, before we leave Touch Arcade, let me show you one last thing. Inspiration can come from anywhere. For example, this article is talking about The Binding of Isaac. This is a game that's been out a long time. But notice they're also talking about Super Meat Boy Forever, a new Super Meat Boy game. Now, this is interesting because I love Super Meat Boy. If you haven't played Super Meat Boy, it's a really hardcore platformer. It was part of the inspiration for my game Phases. You're not going to see it, but you can feel it if you play both of the games. They're both brutally hard games. PewDiePie actually played Phases on his channel because it was so difficult. All right, so I did get inspiration from there. And this makes me rethink of that, right? So then I think, wow, if this game is coming out in 2018, which is just listed here that it is, then probably there's going to be a little surge of hardcore games coming out around this time, maybe even right after this time. And again, if you can predict the future a little bit because of something like that, a really big IP coming out that's going to push the industry in a certain direction, then it's a really good idea to keep that in mind. You don't want to loop and go crazy over it, but it's something to definitely think about. All right, so this is Touch Arcade. We have other sites, of course, like pocketgamer.biz, and this is Slide to Play. And you can see this has a really nice layout going over different games coming out. And the same with App Advice, but it's going to have all sorts of different apps. So that's number 10 on the top 10 sources for coming up with game ideas. Now, number 9 is a really interesting one. And this one is game jams. This is a great way to come up with unique game ideas. And I gotta give it out to my buddy, Kevin Wolstenholme. If you guys don't know him and his wife founded Rising High Apps. They have 10 Apple features, I think, in the App Store. Great, really smart indie development team. He gave me this idea when we were talking on a phone call one time, and it's searching game jams. And again, now listen, you would never want to go see a game in a game jam and then rip it off, right? That's not the idea. What you'd want to do is look at game jam videos on YouTube, which we're going to do in a second, and then see, do you get inspired? Do you like any type of gameplay that looks fun and it looks like, wow, that's, based in something I've seen before, but it's a unique take. How can I make this cooler? So let's go to YouTube now. And I'm pretty sure you guys are familiar with this site. Just in case, so let's go ahead and close out these tabs too while YouTube is loading up. All right, cool. So super simple, guys. All we're gonna do is just go up here in the search box. We're gonna type in Game Jam. Let me zoom in so you can see that. We're gonna see a ton of different videos here about game jams. Some of these, like this one right here, is going to be a really long video. It's not 72 hours, to be clear. It's, what is that, about 18 minutes. It's a time lapse, but it's only one game. That's not what we want. We want to find one that shows off all the games from a game jam. If you don't know what a game jam is, the real 5-second version is you get a bunch of game creators, game developers in a room together for like 18 hours, 24 hours, and they create a game. They just come up with real crazy ideas. Good place to get inspiration. What you want to look for, though, is not just the craziest idea ever, because again, model and improve works because we know that this type of game is popular. Super Mario Brothers is popular. Platformers are popular. How can we turn that on its head? How can we remix that? Do something cool with it? So if you see a game in a game jam that doesn't base itself in some sort of reality, it doesn't look like something that might be popular in the app stores, then you don't want to necessarily focus on it, right? You want to get inspired by things that you think are going to work. Okay, so this is cool. This is from the GMTK Game Jam. Not really sure what that is. You can click on here for more information, and we're going to see some different games on here. We got, hey, like that art style is really cool. It does look based in some sort of reality here. Because let me go a little bit bigger screen so you guys can see, because it kind of looks like Minecraft. I do like this art style, and that's something definitely to get inspired by. This art style is really cool as well. I really like this pixel art style. Like this is a great example, even though this game might not be the most beautiful game I've ever seen, right? Again, in defense of the creator, it was made in 24 hours or whatnot, but still, this is an interesting gameplay style. It reminds me a little bit of some of the space shooter games, right? But it looks like they use a chain reaction. That's a cool thing to get inspired by. So you don't look, when you're looking at game jams, you really don't worry about the fact that the graphics might not be great. All right, the idea here is to focus more on gameplay. You can get inspired by some graphics, but if a game has bad graphics, then you don't really worry about it. By the way, talking about getting inspired by graphics, a customer at our game dev company, Buildbox, created a game that looked like this, and it crushed it. Got featured by Apple. It's called 8-Bit Return. Really cool game. So yeah, lots of ways to get inspired by art styles, by gameplay styles, and just because something might not be visually appealing doesn't mean you ignore it. All right, guys, so that's game jams. Now, the next one on our list, number 8, is a really fun one. It's Steam. Looking at charts on Steam. Now, again, before we get into this, it's important to know what platform you want to release on. Are you making a mobile game? If you are making a mobile game, it's probably going to be a smaller development time or creation period because it's not going to be as complicated. What's popular on mobile is either the super complicated social style games or the really simple one-touch minimal style games that we have had a lot of success with and our customers have had a lot of success with, all right? So you need to think about that. But it's still good to get inspiration from Steam regardless, because that's where a lot of these trends are born. That's like the gestation period for this stuff, right? The graphical styles, the gameplay styles, whether it's cloning, reverse timing, a lot of that happens in these indie games and then makes its way over to mobile. So I think it's a good idea to do anyway. All right, so to do that, we're gonna need to open up Steam. So I'm gonna close the web browser here, and I'm going to find Steam and open it up. And we're gonna, of course, update it, right? Because that's why you start watching this video. You wanna see extracting packages and updating of Steam. And hopefully that's gonna be fast. And here we go. Now you know my Steam account name. It's Double Take Man. All right, so it looks like we are good. That didn't take as long as it could have. I'm pretty impressed there with Gaben. Our Lord and Savior, Gaben. And what we're gonna do, I like to go immediately and check out the indie games, all right? So we can go here to games and click on indie, and then it's going to pull up just the indie games. I like to look for top sellers, and then if you hover over this, you can see some, you can see down at the bottom right there, it shows some screenshots. What I try to do is look for a game, again, that's going to be somewhat similar to what we are trying to create. Also, I do not look at Mac OS, all right, OS X. That's obviously I'm on a Mac, but you don't want to look at the platform that's not the biggest when you're talking about creating a game and getting inspired by one. So then what I do is I hover over these looking for a game type that I think that I could possibly create. That is within the budget that we have for creating this game, within the talent of the team that we have creating this game. Like Limbo, I know our artists can create an amazing game like Limbo. This game is still popular. It's shown and proven to have a lot of what we call legs in the industry, right? Like it's lasted a super long time. And we have a team that would be capable of developing something like that. And it just, I love that game. It has such great atmosphere. So this is a great place to get inspired from. And of course, if you went and created Limbo, you're not going to have success. It's already been created. And that's the biggest mistake we see people make, is they take the model part of model and improve, and then they just use that and they forget to improve. So if we were gonna make a game like Limbo, I would want to mix this and match it with another gameplay type that we like, get inspired by something different, and try to make it even better. All right, guys, so that's number 8 out of the 10 ways that we come up with game ideas, and that's looking at Steam, mainly the charts, not necessarily looking at the features on Steam. We'll talk about that for other app stores and platforms, but with Steam, all of the features on your homepage are curated based on what you buy. That's not gonna give you an idea of what's really popular in the market, but the top charts will. All right, so that's number 8. Now, number 7 is one that's a little bit personal to me. This is the only time you're gonna hear me talking about our game development software, Buildbox, but we use this a lot to come up with game ideas. So number 7 is looking at Buildbox presets to come up with game ideas. So this is my number 7 way. It should be my number 1 way because it's what I personally do more than anything. It's not going to be what you necessarily personally do, right? It's mainly going to be for Buildbox customers. Now, if you're not familiar, I'm founder and CEO of this company, Buildbox, and we create this software that lets you create a video game by dragging and dropping. And so we have these things called presets. And if I go up here and I click File and then New, then you'll see in the middle here, we're going to have this creator box open up. And here we have a lot of different presets. And this is how we come up with a lot of ideas on Model and Improve. Now, this is important, okay? Even if you use another game development software, I don't know if any of them really have presets. We actually built that because I came up with this idea based on synthesizers. I create electronic music, like house music, tech house, stuff like that. And I have a lot of synthesizers. And I notice they always have presets, hundreds of presets. You don't use that in your song. It's your starting point. If you want a bass sound, you start with a preset and you tweak it till you get that perfect bass sound you want to use in your song. That was my idea with presets inside of Buildbox. So this is not supposed to be your final thing that you use, right? This is supposed to be your starting point. And that's what we use a lot of times. So I'll find something like if I want a portrait game, right? Fall Switch is one that I believe I created this. I made about 50% of these. And then what I'll do is I'll play this and then I'll get ideas, all right? So this one, you touch the screen here to change direction and I'll think, okay, how can we add something unique to this? You know, what if we had it a little bit faster? What if there was bumpers on the side of these walls that made it automatically bounce, right? What if it was going up instead of down? What if we added jumping to this? What can we add to this game to make it more unique and to make it more interesting, all right? Because this gameplay style has been done a lot. Almost all the presets are based on popular games. So we know this game style is popular. We also know it's been done a few times a few years ago. So how can we add something interesting and unique to it? And so that's probably my number one way, just because I'm founder of this company and I'm working in Buildbox all the time. But I only put this at number 7 because I know a lot of people out there are creating games in many, many different ways. So that's my number 7 way of coming up with game ideas using Buildbox presets. Now, the number 6 way that we come up with game ideas is looking at forum boards. Now, I have to start off with a warning here. Forum boards are great. You can get some good information, but I strongly recommend not getting too sucked in on forum boards. Don't worry about your post count and trying to be the person who posts the most on forum boards, because it can really eat up a lot of time. Spend that time creating, making, and coming up with ideas and trying out new things and building games. You can't trump experience. Research is good, but don't get into the vortex of getting lost in your research, okay? So I'm gonna show you a few different forum boards though that are great to get inspired and see cool game ideas. All right, so a great way to start with is right here on our website at Buildbox. If you go to community and you click on forum, you'll see that we have a great forum that has some really good information on it. On the left-hand side, you can check out Game Showcase and see some game ideas. Now, again, to be clear, you don't want to rip this stuff off, all right? The last thing I would do is tell you to go to our forum and rip off game ideas, is to get inspired to come up with new game ideas, okay? Then, also, another forum I really like is at Touch Arcade. We can just go to toucharcade.com and we'll see right here, forums right there. If you see that, we're gonna click on it. And then this is going to pull up the forums here, and you can see a lot of upcoming iPhone and iPad games. This is great for seeing games that are about to come out. You'll see some pretty big developers actually on here as well. A lot of successful developers I'm in contact with, they constantly use Touch Arcade as a way to promote their games, so that's a good place to do it. And then another one is the iPhone SDK forum. If you just type iPhone SDK forum right there, then you'll see it's this first one right up here, iPhone Dev SDK. This is one that I've liked. It's been around forever. It's one of the first ones out there, and you can find a lot of discussions here on games that people are creating. Also, you know what? This is actually the first game business forum I ever found. So I use that a lot for that one. And of course, if you want more, you can just go to Google and type in mobile game development forum. That's what you really want to try to find, is where people are talking about mobile game development, creating games. GameDev.net here, I'm sure, has a section, etc., etc. You can find a lot more to choose from. So that is number 6 out of my top 10 ways to come up with game ideas. That's checking forum boards. Now, the number 5 way that I use to come up with game ideas is by playing games. Right now, it seems obvious, but it's really not. You would not believe the amount of people who get into game development, possibly for the wrong reasons, maybe even for the right reasons, and just get confused, overwhelmed, and they forget that, look, you gotta be playing games. Now, when I say playing games, of course, you guys might play Overwatch at night. I play Overwatch almost every single night, all right? Or you might be playing a game you downloaded on your iPhone a long time ago. Here's what I mean, though. When I say play games, I mean you need to be downloading games on a weekly basis in the app stores that you want to launch and be successful on. If you want to be #1 in Google Play, you need to be downloading the new featured Google Play games, the new games that hit the top 100 every single week. This is the one thing out of all 10 of these that I see every single successful game creator doing. Every guy I know a lot of guys. Like the guy who created Color Switch and Kevin Wostenholm I talked about before, Simon Crack. A lot of guys out there who crush it, who have really big game businesses that do extremely well. All these guys are constantly playing games. They're constantly downloading the Apple featured games, the Google Play featured games. They're playing Steam. They're just involved in it, and especially involved where they want to be successful. You could look at my phone right now and you'll find tons of games from literally this week that I've downloaded and I'm checking out. Even though we're not coming up with new ideas right this second, we're finished polishing and finalizing some games for some pretty big publishers I'm excited about, but still, I always am downloading, always staying involved in the scene. Really important one. All right, so that is the number 5 way of coming up with a game idea. All right, so the number 4 way to come up with great game ideas is Flash gaming sites. Now, this is an interesting one. You don't see many people doing this, but we have seen throughout history this works very, very well. In fact, arguably, the biggest game of the past decade was modeled and improved from a popular Flash game. And I'm talking about Angry Birds. And I mentioned this multiple times on these videos and even at the beginning of this video that Angry Birds was modeled and improved after a Flash game called Crush the Castle. And we're not talking about Crush the Castle being a game that hardly anyone's heard of. We're talking about an absolutely huge game with millions of plays that was really popular, all right? Now, how much success do you think Angry Birds got because it modeled a game that was already extremely popular, but added better graphics, more characters, unique player abilities, more levels, and honestly, more polish all the way around? It's probably a huge factor for its success. So let me show you how we can look at Flash gaming sites and get ideas, not to copy games, but to model and improve. All right, so first off, we're at Google. Let's go ahead and type in Flash gaming sites here. We're gonna see a lot of different sites pop up. Addicting Games, one of the most popular ones, as well as Congregate and Miniclip. Honestly, you can stop there. That's going to be most of your very popular games. Let's check out and start with Addicting Games first. And we can see here in the middle that we have the most addicting games. So these are going to be their top list, the most popular one. And of course, just like we've talked about previously, you want to look for games that you think you can create, that are in your ability to create. Listen, if you're super new at game development, if you're not really good, it's okay, because there's some really popular games that aren't complex, that don't have a lot of very complex things. The first game we made was a model and improve off of Doodle Jump. Because actually the first game we made was a model improve off of that game Simon. I mean, how simple is that? Then the second one was off of Doodle Jump, because honestly, our skills as a team back then wasn't near what it is now, okay? So it's okay to start easy and small, but you want to find games that are similar, such as a game involving a paper airplane. Now, I'm not going to wait for the advertisement to load here if it takes too long, but you get the idea. So this is going to be a game where you fly a paper airplane, and it's going to take 30 seconds, which in YouTube time is like 15 hours. All right, so we can't wait on that one. Maybe we'll let it load while we're looking at the next one, which is Congregate. And again, the same process here. I think you understand how this works. You have the hot games right here. All right, we can look at the highest rated games, and then we can see their mobile games, and then the most played games. Now look, that's the one that you really want to focus on. We're going to click on See All, and now we're looking at, on Congregate, the most played games. We have Bit Heroes, Mutilate a Doll 2, which I've seen games similar to this on mobile. And again, you can look at the ones with simple graphics, find the ones with simple gameplay, because this is interesting. If they have simple graphics, simple gameplay, and they're really, really fun, then they found a game mechanic that is so strong, that people enjoy so much, that they don't have to have amazing graphics for people to play over and over. So that is number 4. Now, the number 3 way that we come up with awesome game ideas is the Google Play Store. I'm sure you're familiar with the Google Play Store, and if you're not, and you're making mobile games, then you need to make a decision right now. Either quit trying to make mobile games or get familiar with the Google Play Store. It's the busiest store, it's absolutely enormous, and it's a little bit difficult to manage and to walk around. We're going to check it out now. But it is imperative if you want to create games for mobile devices that you understand these stores. Now, when you go to play.google.com, and actually I'll tell you a cool little thing here. You can type in Google Play, and you'll see on the left-hand side, you can go straight to games right here. All right, and that's going to take you to play.google.com/store/app/category/game. All right. Or you can just go to play.google.com, click on games. Now, so we're in the games category, as you can see right here, and we have top charts. This is the only one I really worry about. I do check out features some, more focus on that with Apple. We'll talk about that soon, okay? Now, there's a lot of noise in the Google Play Store. You don't want to just look for anything. You don't want to look for a game. If you see Angry Birds has made a match 3 game, which they have, you're not going to necessarily have success modeling and improving that because they have a couple things stacked against you. They have Angry Birds for one of the largest brands of the past decade. Then number 2, they have about $700 million or something like that, okay? Probably resources you don't have readily available, an enormous brand that was so big they were literally making Angry Birds duct tape, and then number 2, vast amounts of unlimited money from a public corporation. All right, so when you're looking for games that are popular, you want to look for standout games that are popular, that look like they were created by a single person, or someone with again, we're going back to your skill set. Something that was created with your skill set. Because here's the thing, if someone makes a game with your skill set or my skill set, which is not what a huge 1,000-person company like Rovio would be able to do with Angry Birds, and then it makes it to the top, something's going on here. It's not an accident. Nothing is by accident. So that's an important lesson in and of itself. Nothing's by accident. If you see something rising to the top of the store and it's by an indie guy, all right, then he's figured out some gameplay, something possibly by accident, figured it out by accident. It's not by accident that's at the top of the store, that you can use that data, right? So let me give you a good example. Flippy Knife. This game came out of nowhere, it crushed it. It's the #1 game right now on Google Play. And this is a game that, look, it's got great graphics and stuff. If you haven't seen it, it's a really, really pretty game. I mean, they've done very well with it. But it's not like the most complicated thing in the world to create, okay? It's something that is definitely doable. And if we go back here, we can see Snake vs. Block by Voodoo Games, published by Voodoo Games. A lot of these are not created, like the mini clip games. We just saw them. And I should have probably clarified that. These mini clip games aren't made by Miniclip. They're a publisher, right? They publish the game. But now, there's a couple interesting things here. Okay, first off, this Sudoku Premium. Is this really like just a simple, basic Sudoku game? And it is. So that's interesting. All right, I would want to research this a little bit and see how long this game came out. Time is very important. If the game came out 4 years ago, you can't really compete with that. You can't go 4 years back and release a Sudoku game unless you have a time machine. Then you can do a lot of cool stuff. Then you need to go play the lottery and bet on sports teams. All right, but you're probably not going to make Sudoku in that case anyway. Now, it is interesting, though, that a game like that is rising this high now, but I would want to see how long it's been around. Also, it's a top paid game. You see that over here? And the paid games are weird. Paid games, a lot of times, just stay at the top for a long period of time. All right, so I like looking at the free games, so I'm going to click on See More here and view more top free games and try to find something that's a bit of an anomaly, something that is higher than it probably should be, something that is up there hanging out with Final Fantasy, Angry Birds, and Subway Surfers, but is not that big of a brand, okay? And sometimes you'll find it, sometimes you won't. Color Switch was that kind of game, and you can research that and see how they had a lot of success. That was originally made with their software Buildbox, and I know the developers and publishers, they're really smart guys. Now here's one that I would definitely want to check out. Little Alchemy. Now this is interesting. All right, this is a pretty simple looking game. The graphics are not very complex. Yeah, this would be one I would definitely want to research. We got a game here in the top 50 or something like that, that is unique, that doesn't look like it was created by a huge, massive team, that looks like it might be doable. So that would be one you definitely would want to check. So anyway, here's the interesting thing about the successful people I know, the successful people creating games. Here's another one, Stickman. I mean, again, it's number 63 and it looks like, the simplest game ever. Something was figured out here. Something is special about this game, and it would be worth figuring out what that is. But again, the thing that I've noticed with people who are crushing it is that they're constantly keeping an eye on these app stores. They're not only constantly downloading games like I talked about, they actually can tell you, if you cornered any of them and said, hey, what's a game involving a knife in the top 20? All these guys would be like, oh, it's Flippy Knife. Like, they know that, right? They have their finger on the pulse of the marketplace enough to know that kind of stuff. And that's really important. And that's why Google Play is our number 3 out of top 10 ways to come up with game ideas. So you probably know this, but in case you don't, let's get to number 2. Number 2 out of our top 10 ways of coming up with game ideas is similar to Google Play. It's the Apple App Store. And it might be controversial that it's number 2, but there's a good reason for that. Out of all the developers I know, every single one of them generate more revenue on the Apple App Store than they do the Google Play Store. And that's because there's a lot of noise on the Google Play Store. Google Play will approve almost anything as long as it's a respectful game, and Apple is not doing that anymore, especially now. They've really made their submission process harder, which means there's more quality titles, which means there's less competition, which means if your game does well, you have a higher chance of earning more revenue. On top of that, Apple did something really interesting. They have everyone's credit card, almost, who has an Apple account. Almost everyone has a credit card attached to it, which means that there are higher average revenue per users of their games, and that means ads also bring in more money. So therefore, all of those things combined mean that Apple is a platform you absolutely cannot ignore. So to do research and see what's crushing it right now on the iPhone and iPad App Store is very simple. It's very similar to what we did in the Google Play Store. But what we are going to do is use iTunes for this. And after you open iTunes, you want to, in the top left-hand corner, make sure that you have chosen apps so you can see the apps. And then you can scroll down, and on the right-hand side, you can see top free apps. All right, we're going to click on that. After this loads up, we're going to choose in the top right-hand side, games. I'm going to go click on games right here. Now it's going to only load games. It will refresh every single time to paid, and we do like to look at free. So I'm going to click on free here in the middle, and now we can see all of the games. And we're doing the exact same thing here that we were doing at Google Play. We're looking for those anomalies. We're looking for those games that are really high. They don't look like they were made by huge corporations. They don't look like millions of dollars were invested in them, and it's something that we could possibly compete with, learn from, find out why it's doing well, then model and improve. All right, so just looking at this right now, we're going to obviously see a lot of similar games, but look at this, number 4. I didn't see this on Google Play. It might have been on there, but I did not see it, but is Push and Pop. Now, I can tell you why this game is doing well. It's because it was featured by Apple, okay? But still, this is by a pretty small organization, it looks like. If we click on Rocky Hong, oh, this is the guy that made Beat Stomper, which was another phenomenal game. And I think this is just a 1-person team, maybe 2-person team, really small team. And again, this game is crushing it. Just because Apple features a game does not mean that it's going to do well. A lot of times they feature a game and it still won't break the top 100 of the games chart. And here we are looking at the top 3 game right now in the whole iPhone App Store out of the games chart. So definitely something to pay attention to. I would want to dive in, play this game, figure out what's going on. And then let's look at some other games. Every time you press back, they have a little bit of an annoying experience there. You have to redo it. Okay, so we're here at the top 3 games. Of course, Snake versus Block was a huge hit. Flappy Dunk as well, pretty simple. We got this game here by a new company, Boonk. Is that right? It looks like BoomBit's logo, but I think it is, yeah, Boonk. I'm not really familiar with those guys. Boonk game. So maybe it's a meme or something. You'll see a lot of memes on here. Maybe that's something I'm not familiar with. Then you have Merge Town's going to be a little bit more complicated, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to go through all of these. You're going to see a lot of familiar games, and you are going to see those games that look a little bit out of place. Hey, this is a great game by a great publisher, right? The publisher publishes the game, the developer makes it, and then signs it to a publisher who releases it. And this game, again, looks pretty simple, but really stylish, really cool. Crushing it, Umbrella. I've worked with these guys a lot and talked to them. Really smart publishing team. So again, you want to make sure, just like Google Play Store, even possibly more important because there's more revenue generated for developers on the Apple Store, that you focus on the App Store and see what's crushing it right now. That is our number 2 way to come up with game ideas. And now we're ready for the big finale. The number 1, the final way that we use more than anything to have success in coming up with game ideas. And this one might be a little bit of a trick one, but it's not really, because you can't trump experience. right? I can tell you, I can make this video 5 hours long, go over everything in detail, and it's not going to trump experience. That's why the number one way to come up with a game idea is making games. The more you put in, the more you get out. The more you do this, the more experience you have, the more creativity you're going to have, because you're going to slowly become an expert in that market. You're going to be better at thinking up new ideas because you've thought up more ideas. Now, there's a lot of things you can do to get better at making games. You can read books like The Art of Game Design by Jesse Snell, or Tinker Toys. Or is it Thinker Toys? Anyway, all right, check out an interview I did with David Reichelt, the creator of Color Switch. We talk a lot about this, but nothing trumps you trying over and over again. So regardless if you use software like we created, Buildbox, there's other game builders out there you can use without coding, or if you learn to code yourself, regardless of how you do it, practice makes perfect. The first games we did not do near as well as our games now. Out of the 60 million downloads we had, I think that like 40, 50 million are from the last 2 years, all right? And then we've been doing this for like 8 years. So that shows you practice makes perfect. David Reichelt, who made Color Switch, the first 10, 20 games he made, bombed. Then he made Color Switch. He got better and better. So regardless if you use software like we created, Buildbox, if you learn to code, if you, whatever, however you want to create games, it doesn't matter. But keep creating, keep doing this over and over until you hone those skills, because the more you try, the better you will get. I promise you that. All right, this is Trey. Hope this helped you guys out coming up with game ideas. Please post your game ideas below. I would love to hear them. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. We'll be doing a lot more like this as well. Talk to you later. Bye.